Ben, what do you think for number 20? So, after Mr. Kane was done teaching the lesson, independent clause, dependent clause?
Dependent.
This one, number 20, absolutely is going to be a dependent clause. So, I see the word after. I know that one's a subordinating conjunction. Doesn't mean automatically the whole thing's going to be a dependent clause, but I need to know what happened afterwards. And in this case, what happened after Mr. Kane was done teaching the lesson. At this point, we have no idea. So it's a dependent clause. If I put a period after the word lesson, that would be an incomplete sentence at that point. All right, so it's dependent. It depends upon more words to tell us what's going on. I had time to start my homework. Bill, independent, dependent? Pardon? Dependent. This one, I had time to start my homework. You know, did you have time to start my homework? I had time to start. This one's going to end up being independent because it gives us enough. It might be nice to have a little bit more information, but it would still work as a complete sentence. So that one's going to be independent. If it does not have after, because, since, while, whereas, then there's a pretty good chance you're taking a look at an independent clause at that point. All right. Even though the sun was out. Josh, what do you think? Dependent. Even though, subordinating clause. What was going on even though the sun was out? I don't know at this point. So that one ends up being dependent. If it said even though the sun was out, it was raining, at that point I would have a complete sentence. But I don't have enough at this point. Austin, it began raining this morning. That one's independent. Ethan, what do you think for 24? I ate 3 hot dogs and 2 hamburgers. Independent. I'm full, but it's an independent clause. Because I was hungry. Dependent. All right? And if you take a look at these, if you were to put them together, you would then have examples of complex sentences. Even though the sun was out, comma, it began raining this morning. I ate 3 dogs and 2 hamburgers because I was hungry. So those things together would help us now have complete thoughts at that point. Right? So certainly part of that quiz that's going to be going on Monday, you know, is going to be identifying independent, dependent. Last part that we're going to take a look at today, you got 3 sentences. Underline independent clause once. Underline dependent clause twice. So every word within those 3 sentences is going to get underlined at least once or twice. Alexa, I'll come back and grab your book. Where are you going? Yeah, so for all 3, you know that there is an independent and a dependent clause of each. Okay, so there's going to be an area where it's going to be underlined. So one thing to look for is, okay, where do we have some conjunctions taking place? After, when, because. So that's like the first thing I'm going to look for. So Oedipus was alienated. It just had that. Would that be yeah, so that's why independent clause, which we have line 3 on the next side. So that's all I wrote. That's a dependent. So the only thing you want to make sure you do is that your underline goes all the way to when these, you know, as opposed to just like a general thing, so that I know. Well, pretty much, but you would go underline from when down to leaves. Okay. So like literally every word would have something with it. There's not going to be a once. It'll show us number 26. So, Katie, what do we got for 26?
Okay, so Oedipus was alienated when Creon exiled him from Thebes, and that underlines Oedipus was alienated, which is dependent.
You're underlining it one time?
Yeah, one time.
So independent.
Yeah. Oh, independent. Okay, yes. And then dependent when Creon exiled him.
Okay. Yep.
Alright, thank you.
So, and here's what you want to do when you're dealing with these. If you know that you have an independent and a dependent clause together, Zach, what kind of sentence is this going to be? If we have both an independent and a dependent. So the simple is a compound is a complex. It is a which one did you say? Complex. Complex. Compound is going to be two independents. Okay. So this one you know is going to be a complex. If you know there's a complex sentence, and I'm not going to trick you with something where I'm going to give you a sentence that does not have both an independent and dependent, you want to take a look as to where are those subordinating conjunctions. So when would be one of them. Because is going to be one of them. After is going to be one of them. That's kind of your mark as to probably where I'd be taking a look at a dependent clause. So, absolutely correct. Oedipus was alienated, independent, because that could be a sentence. If I had a sentence that said when Creon exiled him from Thebes, I would need to have more information, so it's going to be a dependent clause. Here's where a person could mess up, and it'd probably be more out of laziness than misunderstanding. If someone does this, that one's going to be marked wrong. They might be right in their mind, but what's happened? When was left out, depending upon how far you're going, Oedipus or Thebes might have kind of been left out. So you want to make sure that when you do that underlining that we know you're going from when to Thebes, we know that you're going from Oedipus to alienated, that every single word is accounted for when it comes to. So I'd hate for someone to lose, some credit just because they did like a real quick, a little quick underline without really going into detail for it. All right. Tyler, how about 27?
Double underlined after Bishop assistant.
Okay. Okay. Good job. Correct. No offense to what I'm about to say. I think 27 is easier. Doesn't mean you're, not as smart. Why is it easier? There's a comma. Okay. So if you see a comma, you know that's where that break is taking place. So what would be coming before the comma would be a dependent clause, because if I have a dependent clause first, I need to have it with a comma. If I start off with an independent clause, as I do in 26, then I know I don't have to have a comma. So one thing that you could look for right away would be, does the sentence have a comma? If it does not, like 26 and 28, then I know that first part of the sentence, if it is missing a comma, is going to be an independent clause. Hannah, for 28, what would be our independent clause? I'm looking forward to Thanksgiving. Is going to be the independent clause, one-time underline. Everything from that point on is going to be a double underline, because it will be my first day off from work in over a week, is going to be the dependent clause. Starting off with that conjunction. Any questions about that? What I would definitely do in preparation of Monday, take a look at your conjunctions in your notes. You want to make sure that fanboys you're able to remember. You certainly want to know that you have a few of these things, the subordinating conjunctions that you can remember. Can I identify sentences? So simple, meaning I just have one independent clause. If it's complex, I got an independent and a dependent. If it's compound, that's when I know I'm dealing with two independent clauses that are going to be joined together with a conjunction. All right? Okay.
Are we done with that?
If we don't have any questions, we're done with that.
Okay. Anyone have any questions? All right, put your stuff away.
New paper. What you just sentence structure thing? Handouts. then Austin, since you asked, ultimately this will also be on the handouts. If you want to keep it out, just because you know we're going to be looking at it next time. You. Right down there on the bottom. All right, what you have here, focus on this. Starting on probably Tuesday is when we're going to begin working on our Oedipus Rex essay assignment. Anytime we do a major work like we did here with Oedipus, you always have a writing assignment that goes along with it. One of the main reasons we took a look at simple, compound, complex sentences, I told you, is because that's something that's going to work into the essay assignment. Let me go over this kind of stuff first.
Why do you have a map?
Because we still use it when it comes to some things. Not with ancient Greeks, but when we do some U.S. things, we do. You have two options in front of you as to which prompt you want to answer. I don't care which one you use. You're not getting more points if you do number one. You're not getting fewer or more points if you do number two. If you were to ask, what do I think? My guess is I think most of you will do number one, but you might prove me wrong, okay? Just because I feel like number one's probably something that we've talked about a little bit more. So students are to select one of the two prompts for Oedipus Rex. Each prompt requires students to complete an analysis essay map, which is a Google Doc. We're going to go over that thing here in a little bit. Each essay is going to be the same so far as requirement. You got an intro, 3 body paragraphs, and a conclusion. Note that each prompt provides you with a possible thesis and focus statement. We'll talk about that here in a minute. It's going to be your job to locate specific passages from the text that are going to support the details of your essay within that thesis and that focus statement. All right? Boy, I said thesis one time, and Zach said it's already coming crashing down. So, you have two questions that you're taking a look at. Foreshadowing is an important component in the play Oedipus Rex. Explain how Sophocles uses foreshadowing to hint at Oedipus's ultimate downfall. So the main thing that you'd be looking for if you went with that prompt would be, where do I have foreshadowing happening within the play? Which we've certainly mentioned a few times. Number two, figurative language occurs throughout the play Oedipus Rex. Remember, figurative language would be things such as simile, personification, metaphor.
Are we running this?
There could be others with it, but figurative language occurs throughout the play. Demonstrate how figurative language helps Sophocles illustrate the conflict in Thebes. Max, what's your question?
We put in this where it says this is an evident in the following examples.
Not yet. Okay. So, this part here that is in bold is your prompt. Same for number two. Same here for number one. This is your prompt that you're dealing with. What you have down below. So I'm going to look at question number one. This first sentence, should you choose to answer prompt number one, foreshadowing emphasizes Oedipus's inevitable downfall throughout the play. If you decide to answer that question, I would expect you're going to steal that sentence from me, and that's going to be your thesis statement. What do we mean when we say a thesis? What's our thesis?
It's the main part of your essay where the body paragraphs back up the thesis statement.
Okay. Which, yeah, that's going to be the hope. Zach, do you have a main idea? Main focus? Yeah, I'd probably stay away from saying focus just because there's also a focus statement, so there can be confusion. But it's basically the main argument, the main idea. It's what are you trying to get across. So this part here with the thesis, which is highlighted in green, foreshadowing emphasizes Oedipus's inevitable downfall throughout the play. Everything that I'm going to write about is going to come back and help emphasize that whole idea of foreshadowing. So if Josh goes with this one, I'm expecting that he's going to write this. Not yet. And Aaliyah's still ahead of you here. Second part, this is evident. This is evident in the following examples. And then that part ends up being blank here. This is evident in the following examples. Certainly, Max, if you went with this one, you will have to fill in some blanks here. Okay, and we'll explain what's going to go on. This is what is called your focus statement. Focus statement means what are the areas that you literally are going to focus on that will be in support of your thesis. So Jenna decides to write about foreshadowing. She pretty much has 2 sentences right now that she's going to borrow from me and use within her essay. Marissa decides to go with figurative language. Same thing would be happening down below. That very first sentence you would use as your thesis, and then you'd have those focal points coming after. So what shouldn't happen when we start writing introductory paragraphs on Tuesday would be a person sitting here going, I don't know what to use for my thesis, because you got it right here. Now, this is evident in the following examples. This would be a part that you certainly want to write down so that there's not any confusion. And I'm not going to give you what those examples are going to be. We're going to have to locate them on your own. But your first example, whether you're dealing with prompt number 1 or you're dealing with prompt number 2, your first example has to come from either the prologue or, and or is an important word, or scene 1. So your first example, you're lifting from the prologue or from scene number 1. Where do you think you're getting your second example from?
Scene 2.
Or scene 3. You're not doing both, but you would be taking from scene 2 or scene 3.
And then the last part is the
You have the Exodus, and there's also a part that would be before that, or scene number 4. Aaliyah, you can go the rest from this once you have that written down. So if you were to do an essay, Max, where you had an example from EXODUS, if you had an example from scene 1 and then scene 2 and then scene 3, you're technically not meeting the requirement because you have to have one coming from scene 4 or the Exodus. So we're breaking the play down into thirds. You're taking apart from at least each kind of section. You're under no requirement that Alexa's going to have something from the prologue and scene 1, and from scene 2 and scene 3, scene 4 and the Exodus. That's more than she needs to worry about. So if one person goes prologue, scene 3, scene 4, perfectly fine. Someone else goes scene 1, scene 3, scene 4, perfectly fine. Makes no difference.
Should we write that down if we do the second one?
So if you decide to go with the second one with the figurative language, it would be the exact same thing. So your first example would be coming from prologue or scene 1. Again, not both, but or I can spell scene right. You'd be pulling from scene 2 or 3, and then scene 4 or the Exodus. Not to sound silly or stupid, you're not writing 2 essays. You're only going to be going with 1. Say I find something from the prologue. I find something from scene 3. I find something from scene 4. Which example am I going to write about first? Which one's going to go in my first body paragraph? I'm going to do the one in the prologue, followed by the one from scene 3, followed by the one from scene 4. All of my examples are going to be going in chronological order. Any kind of questions about that setup? On the page, whether it be down at the bottom or you want to flip it over, makes no difference. I would write vertically prologue, scene 1, scene 2, scene 3, scene 4, Exodus. And the idea is, what are main events or main characters that occur in any of those scenes? So like if we were to say scene 1, do any characters or events take place? And Oedipus is certainly going to be present in all of them, but like what would be the context? What would be happening? Or you can think of it as, what were some examples that you remember of foreshadowing or figurative language taking place that you might want to write about, and we can figure out where they go. So what would be main events in the play? And a good resource too to use if you get kind of confused is certainly going to be a study guide. But like, do you have one? Okay. When do we learn about Laius being killed and Oedipus like kind of admitting to it? When does he admit to killing someone?
Scene 2.
Scene 2.
At the end of scene 2 is when I've killed someone. We got to find out what goes on. So scene 2 is when Oedipus admits to killing someone. A big conversation that you folks kept harping about, correctly so, was when Oedipus was speaking to whom about foreshadowing, and we kept going, hey, this conversation kind of means something.
Tiresias?
Tiresias. When did that happen? Scene number 1. Who tells Oedipus not to worry about oracles? Jocasta. What do you think for that one? Don't worry, it'll be alright. It kind of goes in multiple places. It starts in scene 2, it shows up in scene 3, and it's still kind of showing up in scene 4. So if Jocasta were a person that you would want to talk about, you'd be able to mention it.
She dies in scene 3.
No.
Or scene 4.
She kind of dies in between. When we end up knowing about it for sure is at the beginning of the Exodus, is when we learn that she has died, and that's when he stabbed his eyes out.
Did his whole eyes come out? Overreacting. At his
Everything coming out, splattering all over. Scene 3. I think Austin made an appearance in scene 3.
What was 8?
Oh yeah, they brought the messenger.
Scene 3 is the messenger from Corinth. Scene 4, who shows up?
Oedipus is dead.
The shepherd. I'm going to put /servant, since that's kind of like the same person. Okay, and then down here is when we know about Jocasta's death, and then Oedipus's punishment. The only part we didn't mention is the prologue. What we find out in the prologue is essentially the plague of Thebes and what's kind of going on throughout that point. All right? So this doesn't mean right away you're going, ooh, I'm going to use scene 1, scene 3, and scene 4, but it's kind of giving you some ideas as to what events were taking place. Again, a great resource to kind of figure out what it is that you're ultimately going to want to use is going to be coming from that study guide, because that's going to narrow your focus into certain areas. Messenger from Corinth. It looks pretty sloppy, Alexa. I have not. That's why we type our essays. We've seen Austin's handwriting. It's like a 4-year-old.
Is it really?
On a bad day.
Is it really that bad?
Yeah.
Let me see.
It's not good.
No, it definitely gets worse.
It's better than my sister.
You can't say writing, okay, this answer, or typing. What's the most difficult or more difficult aspects about putting an essay together? Format?
Spacing.
Spacing. Okay.
She got McDonald's.
You got lunch for me. I appreciate it. Whatever's in that bag is going to stay in the bag, though, in the period. formatting, spacing,
Evidence.
that work. Yeah. And I can't really help you with that part. Okay, and Max, your term of evidence would certainly be appropriate. Now, we're kind of giving you some ideas. The good thing is you got this thing, which has all the evidence in it. I'm not worried about you taking out an iPad or a laptop right now to go to this, because we're going to take a look in a little bit more detail on Monday. At the very top of Google Classroom, so you come into your stream, right now it's the first assignment. That might not always be the case. But in classwork, at the very top, in all caps, I have for you what says Oedipus Rex Essay. Subtle. Very subtle. When I click on Oedipus Rex Essay, I got a couple things that are going to show up. Number one, and again, you don't need to go here at all right now. You have an Oedipus Rex analysis handout. It's the thing that's right in front of you, okay, that you already have. And Shai, I can give one to you.
I'm so upset.
Shai, you're not eating. You got your Google Doc that just has your handout in here. The thing that is going to help you when it comes to the format, and this is going to look a little different on your end, but the thing that you have that is going to help you with your format or your structure, all of you have a Google Doc that is now personalized to you. So you're going to have a file where it's going to say Oedipus Rex template, and then it's going to have your name next to it. So Zach's is going to be different from Tyler's, which will be different from Alexa's and Jason's and all that kind of stuff. So Max was worried about spacing. Max, it's double spaced. It's in Times New Roman 12-point font.
Okay.
If it starts looking like Austin's handwriting, Austin, that is solely your fault because I already set it up for you. Up at the top, you already have like where your header is going to be. Now you're going to have to go in and put in your last name. I'm not going to do that part for you, but it's there. What's the last page of any kind of essay where you are looking at a specific work? You got to have a works cited page. You have a works cited page, and it's already filled out there for you. The packet comes from a textbook, so the textbook is already cited. Okay, so that's what I've done. You will make sure this is included, but I can't imagine why it should not be.
Okay, what if we look up stuff on Google?
If we look up additional things, and the only thing that you would probably really have to look up would be sometimes people like song lyrics or something as a hook. We'll add that website in. There's no reason why you're going to be going to Spark Notes. There's no reason why you're going to be going to GradeSaver or Schmoop or anything like that, because you've got all the information that's right in front of you, which makes it an oxymoron.
I'm actually gonna
Now,
pay for it when I get
what happens though is when we get to places here like the introduction, I'm putting in sentences for you that you specifically are going to need to follow along. So Hannah's first sentence is going to be a complex sentence. She's going to follow that up with a compound sentence. She's going to follow that up with a simple sentence. Those are certain structures that you're going to have to go in so that it fits a specific format. Where it says thesis statement, where are you getting your thesis statement from? The handout that you already have in front of you. So when it comes down to this is what I need to have for like a thesis, an arguable opinion, or bold statement, you're going to type in that sentence that you already have on that page in front of you. When it comes to your focus statement, you're going to type in that sentence that you have in front of you. All right? So basically what this is going to end up being for you is mainly a roadmap that you'll follow. Now, Zach gets done writing his paragraph. Before it turns into an essay, he's going to have to go in and highlight that stuff that says introduction, complex sentence, compound, and delete it. Because the only stuff that's going to remain are the parts that you actually wrote yourself. But that's letting you know what has to go into every single paragraph. And that's how it's going to go for all the body paragraphs. For all the paragraphs total, whether we're talking intro, conclusion, or body. So the format part, which does tend to be problematic for folks, this would help kind of eliminate that. All right? You still have the freedom to do some own things with it, and you're still going to have to think of your own ideas and your own examples and evidence, because that's going to be coming from the packet. But how it should be fit in, how it should be structured together, that part shouldn't be a problem. On Monday, and you will want to start thinking about this for the weekend because it's going to be due by the end of the period on Monday. By Monday, you're telling me what is your thesis statement, what's your focus statement, which prompts you're answering, and what are going to be your 3 examples. So you'll know what you're going to pull from scene 1, you'll know what you're going to pull from scene 2, whichever scene you end up kind of going with. So you'll have those examples. That's something that you're going to take care of on Monday. You're going to submit that to me. It's basically going to be an outline of your essay, so that when it comes to body paragraph number 2, you already know what that example is because you told me about it on Monday. Plus, if something gets submitted as this is what I want to use for my 3rd body paragraph, I can let you know that no, that's not going to work. All right? Questions of that? Okay. What am I collecting from you on Monday? Steady guys? What are we going to do before your essay brainstorm? For 30 points, you have your